What I'm going to tell you is difficult. It's going to be difficult for me to say. It may be difficult to hear. And that's exactly why it's important to think about. On May 29th of this year, the Chicago Cubs played the Houston Astros. It was a fairly uneventful game with one extraordinary exception. The Cubs batter, Albert Almora Jr., hit a foul ball down the third base line, which hit a young fan, fracturing her skull. Almora was so shaken, upset, and distraught, he crumbled to the ground in tears. The good news is that the fan is recovering, but most of the discussion after this incident focused on whether netting should be extended at ballparks, not the fact that here we saw something so countercultural, a man crying openly and publicly. As Christine Organ wrote after this incident, you see a sports superstar acting like, well, a human. In a society where masculinity runs rampant and seeming innocent comments like, be a man and boys don't cry, are thrown around with impunity, seeing a man show emotion is rare and unfortunately not always welcome. And this myth that it's not okay to show emotions or, God forbid, cry does not just apply to male sports stars. After 2 impressive wins to start the US Open tennis tournament, 15-year-old Coco Gauff lost to Naomi Osaka. Coco tried not to cry, but tears streamed down her face. Osaka, the winner of the match, came over to console her, telling her it was all right to cry, saying, I know from experience, better to cry on the court than alone in the locker room. The lesson from both of these stories is the same. It's okay to cry. The truth is, you don't have to watch sports to have seen similar scenes play out in life. We've seen friends and family hold back tears in moments where it is appropriate, authentic, and, well, human to cry. How many times have we seen our friends and our family actually apologize for crying? How many times have we seen or have we said to someone, stop crying? Just a few weeks ago, I saw someone on Facebook write, my daughter's final recital, not ashamed, she made me cry. So proud of her. Think about that. Why would crying with pride be something worth shaming? It's okay to cry sad and happy tears. Our Torah, our communal narrative supports this idea. In Exodus, God calls the Israelites a stiff-necked people, and later a wayward and defiant generation. Why? Because they had lived with the Egyptians and learned their habits of not showing emotion. In Deuteronomy, Moses teaches, and Adonai your God will cut away the thick walls in yours and your children's hearts so that you can love with your whole heart and your whole soul. The Women's Torah commentary notes that this expression refers to the metaphoric removal of the emotional blocks that result in their rebellious behavior. Paraphrasing a brilliant teaching by one of our bat mitzvah students this past year, Eliza Zolman, the text here means that we should cut away the emotional barriers and self-defenses which prevent love. Kristen Organ wonders, as I do, at what point did we discover that we can't always show our emotions? At what point did the world tell us to suck it up and hold it in? At what point do we tell ourselves that we shouldn't be human, but that we need to toughen up and not cry? Our current society and culture tells us that pain is a part of life. And if you're showing emotions, you're weak. Or put another way, society tells you that you've failed. But Judaism says, yes, pain is a part of life, and therefore, here are structures for how to process that pain in a healthy, meaningful, and spiritual way. For example, when someone dies, we are meant to sit Shiva for our beloved for 7 days, followed by a 30-day reintroduction into the new normal. It is a structured time for mourners to grieve, to process their grief, and for the community to take care of them. In other words, it's okay to cry, and we're going to give you the proper time to grieve. And simply put, crying is not failure. Crying is not failing. It's your humanity showing. I recognize that this is perhaps a radical idea that needs processing. So in your friends and family groups around you, I'd like you to discuss a few questions and really discuss them with intention and a thought of how can we change, how can we turn ourselves in the year ahead. Discuss, when was the last time you cried? When was the last time you were with someone else that cried? And how did you respond? Did you shut it down? How did that feel for you? And how did it make someone else feel? Or how do you imagine it made someone else feel? What could you do in the future to allow yourself or a loved one to cry? I want to give you a few moments to discuss this with your family and friends. We are a Kehila Kadosha, a holy community. When I was researching our discussion, I did a word search for the Tanakh, in the Tanakh, and I found every time that the word cry is mentioned in the Tanakh, lest you think that we are a people that holds it in, there were 15 pages of references of moments when the Israelites cried, whether it was crying out. Suffice it to say, if you just shed tears in the last few moments, you're in good company. I shared at the beginning of this activity that the topic is difficult, and that's exactly why it's important. Letting ourselves and our friends and our family be openly emotional means we have to let ourselves be a little bit more vulnerable. I get that. And I get how difficult it is to change our perspective, especially when it comes to areas surrounding vulnerability. But Yom Kippur is about asking forgiveness and forgiving the sins of the past so that we might walk into this new year together and become our best selves so that we can make the world a better place. Crying is not a sin. Let's stop pretending that it is. This year, may you be empathetic. May you be compassionate. And may you be yourself, tears and all. Chatima Tova.